talk about a subject that's getting nearer and dearer to many of my peers' hearts lately. And the subject is retirement, or the lack of the ability to retire. So I said the way I retired early has to do with the issue of this. Debt versus what? Equity. The reason I could retire early was because I'm in debt. I borrowed my butt off to retire early. The average person is going to take to 65, 75 as long as possible because they're trying to retire on what? Equity. In other words, they're going to try and use their hard-earned cash to retire, where I would rather use the bank's money to retire. So I am in debt up to my eyeballs. Because the reason is I know some of you out there, because I'm sure some of your parents told you to get out of what? Debt. Well, that's not that intelligent. Because you have to know there's good debt and what? Bad debt. And most people are loaded with what? Bad debt. And if you want to get rich, load up with what? Good debt. And the question I asked those bankers, I said, let me ask you this. How long would it take you to save $1 million? I'll ask you guys, how long would it take you to save $1 million? A couple of years at least, right? Yeah. How long does it take you to borrow $1 million? About 10 minutes. If you have good financials. And that's the difference. And that's the price people pay for not being educated in this world, to think that they have to work hard, save money, and finance your retirement on equity. I'd rather do it on debt. And the way I do it on debt is my banker will always lend me money on a thing called real estate. Always. They will not lend me money to buy stocks, but they will, even if it's, bank of, what stock, their own stock, they won't lend me $1 million for 30 years at 8%. But I find a commercial building, $1 million, 8%, 30, they'll all day long. The thing that scares me right now is never have so many people in the history of the world bet their retirement on the stock market. And they've bet real money. Am I correct? And trust me, the market will crash. Always has and always will. Now, those taking deep breaths right now, it's because you're not, because that should be good news. Because if it crashes, that's when you get rich. But the people who have been trained to think of playing it safe and all this, they're going to be in terror. Completely different point of view. So the point I'm making here is this. One of the reasons I wanted to get educated, understand cash flow, play the game, was just so I could borrow money faster. When my poor dad always said to get out of debt. Debt was bad. So I just called, I just called my broker down the street here. I said, I need 2.4. He says, come in and sign the paperwork. That was it. 2.4 million, just sign. Now, because I can take that money and make 10 million out of it, the average person will go on vacation with it. Or buy a big house, or buy a boat. It's called fiduciary responsibility. If you can prove you know how to manage your money and you have the good financials, plus you have a couple of million in cash, they'll lend you all the money you want. Because they know my problem is too much money. And the reason I buy real estate is because I get more tax breaks. Real estate is a game of the rich, not paper. It's a really interesting world. So what I'm going to go into is how you can get to the point where you don't, I'm not recommending just go out and borrow today, especially if you have no education. I spent 40 years getting here to the point where I can call my broker up. Before, 10 years ago, I'd call them up and they'd laugh. How much do you want? Well, I took that as a feedback that I had to improve my financials. Does that make sense to you guys here? To the point where they would say yes. So the difference between my poor dad and my rich dad was this. My poor dad always said, get a high-paying what? Job. Big mistake. Because the trouble with a high-paying job is you get taxed. So my rich dad said, so was my poor dad, high-income job. That was the key to success. That's a very middle-class, pedestrian point of view. The rich know this. It's not how much money you make. It's how much money you keep. You've got to keep it. It is not how much you make. It's how much you keep. It's called the income to expense ratio. In other words, how much drops to your bottom line. Does that make sense to you guys here? How much drops? So the minimum is 30%. So if you're making $1,000, the minimum that can drop is 30%. If you're not going 30% to the bottom line, in other words, this way, and you don't have to do it, I'm just giving you the ratios that work. If you have $1,000 coming in this way, then 300 needs to hit here somehow. That's the ratio. The average person, you know how much is hitting here? Nothing. That's why they're poor. They're making more and more money, a high-paying job, you know. I went to the university to get a high-paying job, and I'm now at GS-19, and I'm getting more money, but less is dropping here. Does that make sense, you guys here? Because they're buying more what? Liability. It's called the income-to-expense ratio. How much is dropping? That's what counts. I listened to Sir John Templeton. He said when he first got married, for every 1,000 that came in, 500 hit here. That's what makes the rich rich. It's not how much they make, it's how much they keep. It's a matter of focus. And my poor dad always said, I'm making more money. My rich dad says, I'm keeping more money. Big difference, huge difference in long-term wealth. It's how much is hitting this here. So the thing I have is an exercise that'll prove that anybody can be rich. And when I was a little kid, my rich dad gave me one of these. He gave me 3 of these little things. They're called what? Piggy banks. So if you want to get rich, go out and buy 3 of them. Okay? 3 piggy banks. That's all it takes to train yourself to think to be rich. Now, for every piggy bank, so you have 1 piggy bank, 2 piggy banks, 3 piggy banks. 1 is for saving, 1's for investing, and 1 is for tithing or charity. Very important to give. The decision you make today, I'm talking about choices. You can say, well, that's too simple, you know. But the choice you make is for the rest of my life, or for the next 90 days, whatever you can handle, how much am I going to put in each bank every day? Not once a week. Every single day. Because what you're training is your brain to think like and act like and be like a rich person. You're dropping it to the bottom line. So, let's say the most you can handle today, given your horrific financial brilliance, is $1. Good. Now, I don't care the dollar amount, but I do care that you do it. It's like going to the gym and saying, you know, today I look like a sumo wrestler, but tonight I'll look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's not possible, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So how many people right now could say for the rest of your life, with 3 piggy banks, you'll put $1 a day away per bank? Good, right? I mean, it's not, and everybody can do it. But the problem is, most people won't. And that's the difference. But once it hits your piggy bank, it's yours for the rest of your life. You pass it on for generations. That's what the rich do. The middle class finds some cheap and tacky excuse to break the bank. Am I correct? You know, I got to spend this money. That was my poor dad. Well, if I make more money, I'll get a pay raise next year. The government, you know, be a GS-19.5. But they kept breaking the bank. Now, it has nothing to do with the dollar amount. It has to do with the habit, the way of thinking, that this is more important to me than eating. It's more important than my kids' clothes. More important than everything else is this. This is first. So start with $1. Everybody can do that. All it is 0 to go to 10. Now, at this point, people say, well, that's not that tough. Try $10 a day. Then you see some heartbeats. At that point, you're now at the boundary of what's possible for you. It's only a 0 added on to it. And you want to spend it. Now, if this becomes easy at $10, then just up it to, and you'll find your heart rate going up. So when people say, well, this is a simple exercise, I'm beyond it, then try going to, it is not the dollar amount. I mean, it's not the things, it's the habit. And you know you're a stud. This never spent. This is what your mad money is. You buy your properties and stocks and bonds, mutual funds with. You can afford to lose this if necessary, but you never lose this one. And you tithe your church or charity of your choice. Now, I give to the charity that I would like to support, but I don't have the time to support. So you put your money where your body would be. Does that make sense to you guys here? My rich dad gave it to his church. My poor dad gave nothing. He says, when I have the money, then I'll give it. That's why he was poor. The next point here is that my rich dad always believed in job security. My poor dad, job security. And my rich dad believed in financial security. So the way you get financial security is, again, via these three things. This is the basis of it. Savings, investing, tithing. So the way you get financial security is start with this, and then I start investing with this. Does that make sense? My investing account, this is when I had my fun. I play with that money. So the deal here is this, whether you're buying a business, real estate, or paper, the ratio is this. You can ask my wife the question. For every, somebody says, well, I don't have any money. How do I get some money? I said, start with that, the 3 piggy banks. Or how do you find a nothing down deal? The reason they want a nothing down deal is because they got nothing to put down, right? And that's the most risky thing you should do. You can only take a nothing down deal when you have a lot of money to put down, because it's too risky. I can take a nothing down deal because I got the money to cover it in case it goes bad on me. But the point here is this, how I got my experience, how I can find a deal is this. You can ask my wife this. For every one property I buy, how many properties or businesses or stocks do I analyze? 100. That's the ratio. Before I buy one piece of property, I will analyze a minimum of 100 properties. If I don't buy one property in that 100, I start all over again. It's 100 to 1 is the ratio. That's how I find a deal. Not only that, is when I had no money, what was I doing? Still analyzing a deal. It's 100 to 1 before you can find one deal. When people come, I went with a ride with a realtor and we found one property and we bought it. I said, how many did you look at? Just that one. That's an idiot, not an investor. They have no clue. The way you want to find out the market trends, the ups and downs, the ins and outs, is you got to analyze 100 deals. Out of that 100 deals, you put in offers on 10. Because 90 are bad. But in the practice of analyzing the deal, you get smarter. I learn more. I learn something from each deal I look at. Of the 10 I invest in, or I put offers in, I might get 3 accepted. Now, this comes from my friend Dolph DeRoos, who's a real estate genius. He says, if this number is like 6, what does that mean? You're offering too much money. That means you're not being tight enough. You've got to screw it down a little bit more. It gets down to nobody accepting you're too tight. So you want to keep it in this ratio. Of that, you'll buy one property. When people say, how did I get my education? I got my education evaluating deals. I estimate to this day right now, I've looked at over 50,000 deals. That's how I got smart. Instead of going to work, I look at deals. If I'm buying a business, the ratio is the same. 100, 10, 3, 1. If I'm buying a stock in a company, I've got 100 companies, same ratio. Everybody can do that. Does it cost them any money? No, not at all. It's free. When I go on vacation with my wife, Kim, she knows where I'm going to wind up. It's a real estate office or a brokerage office because it's a habit. So this is what gave me financial security, and what my poor dad focused on was what? Job security. He had no assets when he lost his job. Okay? 30 seconds, please discuss that ratio. 50,000 properties I've looked at now. I'm going to do one last thing that, in my experience, keeps most people poor or struggling financially. So you remember the 3 piggy banks? That gives you the money. Doing this, 100 deals. The reason I don't have a job is because it interferes with looking at deals. I don't want to do that. I'm looking at a deal constantly. That's the people that work with it constantly. That's all I'm doing is tracking down deals. It's a waste of time to work. I don't get rich. So that's the thing. The second part is most people don't have the time to spend the time. to get rich. They're too busy working for the money. And the third part is most people say it's risky or it's fearful or they chicken out. You know, they see a deal. Even if they see it, they back out. And I've seen so many people do it. And the reason for that is because if this is an iceberg, okay, most people, they say, I'm going to get the 3 piggy banks, I'm going to look at 100 deals, but it comes time to put the money, we call it go hard on the dollar. Got to go hard. If this is your conscious mind, let's say, this is your what? Subconscious. Money, sex, politics, religion. This thing takes over. I have seen people go, I might lose money, when the stock market crashes, and what if this is bad, and I'm going to call my accountant, my attorney. This talks. I see him walk away from it. Well, I'll think about it. It doesn't cost you anything to buy a piece of property. Nothing. It costs nothing. It's called you put an option down on it. I sit there and say, well, you got $1 million? I said, here's a $20,000 check. Don't cash it for a week. I'll see you. I option it. Same as in the stock market, option. I don't use the thing. It doesn't cost you any money to buy a piece of property. But people will talk themselves out of it. Instead of interacting, these guys are reacting. And it's really tough here in Arizona, or you don't know what it's like to be in New York. I'm going, it doesn't make any difference, because the problem is between your ears. Because the fears come up, they start talking. You can't talk to these people at that moment. They're like, and the reason is because of the magic word. What is it? Fear. And what happens to the average person, fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And what I mean by false evidence is that if this starts talking, they'll start gathering the evidence to make sure that it's real. Well, you know that most businesses fail. Let me show you the facts, and let me show you the stats. See, they're looking for all that false evidence. They'll validate, they'll justify it. They'll call their mother, their sister-in-law, their brother-in-law. Yeah, we agree with them. Am I right? They'll make it real. It's not real. Like, I got crucified that said, that the 9 out of 10 businesses fail. I said, that's correct. Most of them fail, but one makes it. I said, look, I failed twice. Twice I was part of the 9, but once I made it to the 10. The difference between you and me is you haven't failed at all yet. Yogi Berra once said the great thing about the National League is that if you strike out 7 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. So the biggest mistake was by my poor dad, my rich dad, this did his thinking for him. He could give you all the reasons why you fail. When I failed, I felt terrible for about a year. It was horrifying. I lost millions of dollars. Self-esteem, I was homeless again, on the street and all this. But once I got that back, I was stronger. Then I failed the next time. Oh, but 6 months depression. Third time I hit it. Difference is my poor dad said, you failed. My rich dad says, you haven't failed enough. There is a difference. And my rich dad also said, failure is part of success. People who avoid failure also avoid success. So your biggest expense is not what you spend. Your biggest expense is the money you're not making because you're afraid. So the thing that my rich dad taught me very early on, called fear. Fail early and fail responsibly. Look, if you know you're going to fail, do it now. Don't wait. Because each time you make a mistake, you get smarter if you do it responsibly. So the thing that I do is when I fail, I go, like I said to my investors a couple of 4 years ago, I said, I need to raise $3 million. The chances are we're going to fail. And if you can't handle the $50,000 shot, don't put your money in here. There's a good chance I'm going to fail on this one. So people left the room, and I got more money because I was forthright with them. I said, if I lose it, I'll tell you I lost it, and I'll tell you the next deal. But failure is part of the process. So the thing that I say to people is fail early, correct, but fail small. The first deal my wife and I did when we got back into real estate was a $45,000 deal, $6,000 down. If we failed, we would have got smarter than somebody who didn't fail at all. But we didn't. So we pushed the boundary, going bigger and bigger, hoping to fail. While everybody's avoiding failure, I'm hoping to fail because I'm going to get smarter. I open my mind up, I ask people for their advice, I synthesize the data, make my own decision. But I live and die. If I make a mistake, I own this. I apologize, I blew it. I made a mistake, this is what I learned, continue on. So I want to thank you all for being here. The thing I want to leave you most with is that every morning, you know, as a 9-year-old boy, I thought, who was going to listen to? It was a choice, rich dad or poor dad. Every morning I get up and I still make that choice. Who am I going to listen to? And I hope you make your choices for yourself. Thank you very much.